Live. Bryce, what you got?
A lot more documentation.
That actually is so cool. The number of projects that never get documentation. I'm very happy about this.
This is awesome.
No, yeah. So and it's one of those things. If I'm trying to prevent things like this from happening more, I don't know how much it will, though. It's still sort of a bit of a jump to like write a whole tutorial about something. But I don't know. I'm trying to do it. That was mostly the GitHub feedback like stuff. At the very least, going through and writing documentation on something does give me like, oh, why don't we make this a lot simpler? Like having to write out all of these things. There's no reason like why this particular thing needs to be required. Let's just have a better, smarter default for it. And so that's like what takes up about half the time of actually writing it is improving the stuff, which is good. But yeah, so how to like add the little review widgets is now documented, and it's crazy short, and so that's pretty nice. And I'm trying to work out like developer journeys for doing e-filing, like to write the documentation of okay, like you want to e-file something. What exactly do you have to do step by step? And it's still kind of hard. I can at least get it out to like you have to have something already there. And then case search is like a really simple thing that you can add that doesn't have to like mesh with everything else a ton, but everything else gets very mangled from there. And it's really hard to be like, this is your next step to take because it's okay. Now here are 5 different concepts you have to understand at the same time before you can actually get to anything usable. And so I'm still trying to work through that. I don't really think there's any like it's a general blocker, but I don't think there's any like sort of help that I could get. I'll definitely, when I have something out, I will try to ping people and be like, hey, does this make sense at all? And I would definitely appreciate everyone's help because I know e-filing has sort of been my area, but I'm trying to make it everyone else's area. So like, even if you don't feel like you understand anything about it, you please read it and tell me if it helped at all. So
Well, yeah, that's probably a good way to think about it. All right, cool. All right, Michelle.
that's all I got.
So my blockers right now are many and varied on different fronts. There was a little wrangling of dark mode for a few people over the last few days. But I've got some demos for people who want to make a toggle button and people who just want to override it for now if Jonathan hasn't created that config yet, config option. The main blocker is the date input fields and like what behavior is MVP, because implementing all the perfect behavior is, I just don't know if there's an option that is less extensive than that also works, that also isn't just confusing. So like I can link y'all to the, oh God, where is it? The behavior, the specifications that the UK government has, which I think are great, but they're hard to implement with what we have on DocAssembly. And I'm working on priority levels now and like have questions about like if 2 fields are invalid for different reasons, what should that look like? I should write that. That's a better articulation that I've made of that question than any before. Fields are invalid for different. Like, should they both still be highlighted in red, or when you leave one, or only the most priority field should be highlighted in red and the other one should be not highlighted anymore? because the message then isn't applying to it, right? If you say you need a 4-digit year and the day is too many days in the month, then it's confusing to have them both highlighted. I don't know.
I generally feel like, well, one, this might be a good thing other people might have thoughts on, but my general feeling is, that like a choice is better than no choice. So, as long as it's accurate. I mean, so situation you just described where it's like you need a 4-digit year, then maybe that's not accurate, and that can be your guide. It could be just like, but maybe that changes the error messages, like there's an error with your date. So.
What if both of them are invalid for different reasons? It just says there's an error with your date.
Yeah, that's one option, right? There's always the option of just
Okay.
changing the language, like as opposed to changing the big behavior. So if you feel the language, and that's like the easier fix, right? It might not be the ultimate fix, but it's always a good, first pass. If the interest is in keeping things accurate, then change the message so that it's accurate. So it's like, there's a problem with your date. So it might be there's a problem with the formatting of your date. Make sure that it has, this. I don't know, Bryce, you've unmuted. What are your thoughts?
Just that I agree that like the UK thing is definitely like the best thing to do, but in like the best UX, but like if it's hard to get it there, we don't have to have an individual message for every single like different thing that can happen. And also, I was also going to note that this is definitely a thing that feels easy-ish to iterate on in terms of like it will not break anyone if we change how our JavaScript validation works for this field. It does not change any logic in the DocAssembly stuff, and like it's changing default behavior, but it's not like breaking it for a user. Like if someone entered in the right thing, they'll still be able enter it in the right thing, doesn't change anything. And like essentially we can do this and improve it and get it out there for like the custom, because this is basically this has started off from like the custom validation stuff that we're trying to add to like the custom object, right?
Yes, it's just that adding, and no individual messages is an idea that could simplify things for sure.
Yeah, I think I think I was going to say the only other thing that I'm not following a ton is it might be a bit too technical and would take a while to explain, but like what parts are hard to actually implement, and maybe understanding that would.
So the individual message is hard to implement.
Mm-hmm.
So that's definitely a great simplification. The other parts that are hard to implement is highlighting the right stuff, but I think I've got that mostly implemented now.
By right stuff, you mean like if someone enters an incorrect day, like the 40th day or something, just highlighting that field instead of just the whole date or all three fields?
Highlighting individual fields when it's appropriate, but highlighting all the fields when it's appropriate too. I think I've got that figured out. Both of those. So if your date is like too far in the past or something, right?
Yeah.
Like then everything should be highlighted. But if you're just missing a required field, then only one thing should be highlighted. And if you're missing 2 required fields, then both those should be highlighted. I think I've got that part going. With some like weirdness that might be like acceptable. And yes, just prioritizing the messages and deciding what message to show depending on what field or fields are invalid. I think that's been the hardest. So if we simplify that, then I think that's probably really helpful. Caroline would not be happy, I don't think. Sorry, Caroline, if you're
Yeah.
watching this, but it's just very difficult with the system that we have.
And that's the thing, is I think that's the I agree, it's not ideal, and Caroline might be like not as happy with it, but it's also like this is one of the things that makes it very like we get what we have now. Whenever we get the chance to like come back and revisit it, we can improve it, and Caroline doesn't have to do anything to get the new stuff besides just update. So
yeah, I'm trying to find a demo of the UK thing so I can see some of the behavior that's not mentioned, just so I know. But yeah,
the demo might be a bit. I guess the demo might be a bit hard because I think a lot of these design things are actually
not
no.
implemented.
No, actually, there is there is one. Sometimes they're like very vague, but this one actually that seems to be a like working
Implementation. Oh,
Yeah.
freaking awesome.
But I can't tell if it's live. Because it looks like it's still not it might not be a live one.
Yeah, and it's not responding. So like
yeah, it's just
not,
like
the validation isn't responding. Okay.
yeah, so it's probably a good check to be like, oh, it looks like this, and screen reader wise it tests like that, but I don't know if they have the
I have to make some improvements for the screen reader stuff for the attributes and the fors and everything like that.
Okay.
For
Let me know if you need any help
and
in that.
ID and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Yeah. I might get you at least to review it, which would be good.
For sure.
To make some, suggestions.
All right. Well,
yep. That's that.
MVP is always the way to go. If we can have
as long as we can identify, I've just been struggling to identify an MVP. This conversation has helped a lot. Yeah. So
language is always a good check.
Yeah.
Good direction. All right. Anything else?
I think not right now. Thank you.
All right. I've been working on sort of unassembly line related stuff that I don't know, maybe I can share after, but yeah. So I guess we're still trying to get the word out about the conference and tell people about that. Got like 40 or 50-ish people who are interested in attending in one way or the other so far by the sort of like sign up to let us tell you when we have registration open, sign up, which is like waiting for the university to make a registration page. Fewer people are attending in person than I would like. So if you know folks who might want to come, please spread the word. Hot lunch, hors d'oeuvres with beer and wine in the afternoon, a continental breakfast. So in person is going to be, a thing. And then DocAssembly is the next day. DocCon next day, and we got breakfast for that too. There's no charge for that. $25 for the food on the 4th, unless you're a student or nonprofit. Let me get you later. All right, there was my little ad for anyone watching the video. April 3rd, 2023. I guess I'll stop the recording.